Good afternoon. My name is Professor Harmon, and I am one of the instruction reference librarians over at the Greg Graniteville Library. And today I get to talk to you about one of my favorite technology tools, Zotero. So Zotero effectively is an open source reference and citation manager. So what that means is it is a way to acquire, organize your research, and also create citations. As an undergraduate, you have been working on research projects. You have probably been saving your journal articles and books to either like a Word document, or you've been downloading them on the files on your computer, and sometimes they're all over the place. Where there are tools like Zotero that can help us to better manage our research, and especially when you move into big research projects, or if you have graduate school aspirations, tools like Zotero can be super duper helpful. One of the things I really love about Zotero is it is a free software. So Zotero is a project of the Roy Rosenweg Center for History and New Media at George Mason University, which is kind of a big innovative technology think tank. And it is also funded by the Andrew Mellon Foundation, Institute of Museum and Library Services, and the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation. The reason why I mention all these big funders is that Zotero isn't going anywhere. It's been around for at least 10 years. It started out as a Firefox browser add-on, and it has now kind of matured, and now it is a standalone program. And, you know, there are some other similar softwares out. RefWorks, for example, is about a $300 program, and Zotero is free. And I love free, helpful things. So what can Zotero do for you? So as I mentioned earlier, what it'll allow you to do is, as you're going through in the process of doing your initial research, so collecting the literature on your topic, it'll help you collect that research. So it'll help you pull down and save the PDFs, as well as the information that's going to help you cite it. It also will help you organize your information. So it allows you to create different folders and, you know, different ways of looking at your stuff. So it does help you organize it. One of the things that students really like is that it also helps you cite your sources. And so Zotero has access to over 3,000 styles. So even beyond the normal APA, MLA, National Library of Medicine, there are about 3,000 styles. Now, as with every citation generator, the citations are only as good as the data they pull in. So if you know, the data it pulls in is in all caps, it's going to output that in all caps. So, you know, while this gets us most of the way there, we still do need to take a critical look at the citations that we're producing from the software, just to make sure they are adhering to the style. But, you know, it gets us pretty far. It also allows us to sync our information. And so if you have a desktop computer and then also have a laptop, what you can do is you can set up your Zotero on your desktop. You can find information, and then they offer some free cloud storage. And so then you can sync it up to the cloud and then have that sync with a Zotero instance on your desktop, for example. So you're always looking at the same information, which is really quite nice. So effectively, the Zotero workflow is: you find research, and then you save research, and then you manage your research. You can put it in folders, and then you also have an opportunity to annotate research or add notes or comments on your individual pieces of research. And then at the very end, you can create citations. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through the process of downloading and installing Zotero on your machine. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about how to capture information, how to organize information, some of the highlights of the tool itself, and then I'm going to close with showing you how to do citations and also add Zotero to Word or LibreOffice, and so that you can use that tool as well. All of it gets started at zotero.org, and effectively what we're going to be downloading is the Zotero program. So there's a standalone program, and then we need to download browser connectors. And so effectively what the browser connector does is it's a little thing that sits in your browser, whether you use Chrome or Firefox or Safari, and that allows your browser to talk to the Zotero program. And then the final piece, which is optional, but I think is very helpful, is a word processor add-in, which allows your word processor, so like Word or LibreOffice, allows that to talk to Zotero too. So I'm going to go ahead and jump on over to Zotero.org, and once you get to Zotero.org, and if you want to follow along with me as we go through, I encourage you to do this. Zotero works on Macs. It also works on Linux machines. Throughout the entire example I'm showing, I'm a Windows user, so I will be using Windows as my primary example. So first I'm going to go to the lovely red download button in the middle of the page. And then this is going to get me started. And so I have two primary things that I need to download. The first piece is I need to download the program. And so by clicking on download here, it's going to begin the download process for me to set up Zotero. Once it has downloaded the install file, go ahead and open that up and then go through the processes instructed by your own computer in downloading the individual software. Once you have the program downloaded, the next thing we're going to do is install our connector. I use Chrome, and so I'm going to go ahead and install the Chrome connector. One thing to note is if you use Firefox or Chrome or Safari, you will find a connector. Zotero does not support Internet Explorer or Edge, so if you do use those, I encourage you to download one of the other browsers to utilize with this. But you can have multiple connectors. There's not a limit on connectors. Just make sure from the main browser you use when doing research that you have the connector installed for that. So I'm going to go ahead and install the Chrome connector. Then I'm going to add it to Chrome. And then it's going to allow me to add the connection. And so what I will now notice in my web browser is I will now have a little piece of paper, and that is going to be my Chrome connector. So that is a way that I can begin to save things into my Zotero library. So once you have your Zotero library populated, this is what it's going to look like. You'll notice that there's a place for different folders for you to put different articles. In the middle is going to be your full library. You can tell I've been using this for many years, but your entire library of individual articles will be here. I kind of think this is parallel to an iTunes interface in that each of these are kind of like songs and each of the folders are kind of like playlists. Everything is in your library. You can have articles and as many folders or playlists as you want. So if you put something in a playlist, that's not the end of that. And what you will notice is to the left of each article, you'll see this little caret. If you open that up, what that's going to do is that's going to show you the full text of the article. So when I ingest an individual article in here, it's going to take, first of all, it's going to pull the data, so the information about the article, and this is going to be helpful for citation. And then if an article is full text is available, that is also going to be brought down with the article itself. This was an example of an article I interlibrary loaned and then added to the thing. And then also if I want to add any notes, and you can see I had a gibberish note here, you can add notes to this. And so if I look over here and go back to the main item, on the right hand side here we have info and then notes. And so if I want to add a note, so I can add this article is wonderful. I can add that there, and then it will add it as a note over here. One thing that some people use this for is as they're going through an article and they find key passages or really cool information, they can put that over here. One thing I will caution you with is if you do copy and paste from an article and you put that into the note, make sure you put some sort of quotation marks around it or something to help kind of just keep track for yourself that this was something I pulled directly from the article and was not my own genius. So just keep track of that and you should be pretty good. So the first thing I'm going to do is show you how to create a new folder. So up here in the upper left, it's tiny little folder, yellow folder with a plus mark on it. And what that's going to do is allow me to add a new collection. Oops, 2020 testing. And I'm going to create a new collection. So you'll see that it adds a new space for me. And so what I can go out and do now is I can go out and find more information to add to my library. And so I can add information, whether I have it on the Open to My Library, to the main page, or 2020, but I'm just going to leave it here so that you can see as I add articles in. Now to add articles into my Zotero library, I'm going to go into a database, but you can add websites, you can add book catalog records. So if I'm finding an ebook or something, I can go through and add the book that way. I can also go into a database, and it does work with most databases. If you run into a problem with a database, let me know. And since I'm off campus, I'm going to have to log in. Okay, so we're in our old friend Academic Search Premier, and I like to research gnomes. So I am going to research gnomes today. And I'm going to hit search, and when I go in here, so I have a list of results, and maybe I really dig all of these articles and I'm doing super deep research and I want to pull all of it into my Zotero library. What I can do is go here in this upper right hand corner, and you'll notice that there is a yellow folder and it says Save to Zotero. So I'm going to open that up, and you will notice that it has all the articles here. So if I just want to add a couple of articles, I can click through them and then go ahead and just click OK, and those will add those into my Zotero library, and it will take a minute for them to populate, but you can see it is saving all of those to my library. Now if I wanted to add an individual article, what I can do is, instead of clicking on that yellow folder in the upper right hand corner, what I can do is open up an individual article like you see here. And then in the upper right hand corner, you'll notice that changes from a folder to a little page. And what I can do is click on that page, and it's going to say, hey, we're adding this individual article and its full text over into your Zotero library. So now we are over my Zotero library, and you can see I have all these wonderful articles about gnomes in my folder. And so what I'm going to do now is, you can see, you can open it up, and again, just to kind of review, you have the article and then you can have the full text. Sometimes though, we don't have the full text of the article available. So for example, this Howard's Last Stand, sometimes we find things in other databases, sometimes we request things through interlibrary loan. And so what we can do is we can actually add the attachment of that document. So if we don't have the full text and we're able to acquire it elsewhere, I am going to right click on the entry, and it pulls up this item, this menu. And then I'm going to go to add attachment, and then I'm going to add a stored copy of the file. And then that's going to take me into my files, and then I will be able to add in the PDF. Let's see where to put the PDF. Well, we'll just add this PDF. And then just so you can see, and then what it will do is it will add that PDF here. And you can see the full text is there. Another thing about Zotero that I really dig is, once you kind of have built your library, you can kind of search across it too. So I go through here and I have tons and tons of articles. What I can then do is go over here to all fields and tags. I can put in a term, so I know there was an article by Scanlon. And I can do a search for Scanlon, and it's pulling back that Scanlon article. So that's a really great way to go back and find those articles based on its title or a couple or the author's name. So hopefully now you're a little bit more comfortable with the interface, but there's another big piece that I want to show you. And the strongest toolbar in this entire program is hidden, and it drives me nuts. It used to be on the front screen. But what you will need to access is, if you go under Edit, the very bottom button says Preferences. You will need to go into Preferences. So click on Preferences, And what this is going to do is this is going to bring up a toolbox. And so there are some pretty important functions here that I'm going to go over. The first function I want to show you is sync. So the second tab over says sync. And so remember earlier how I talked about how you could have this on your laptop and then you could have it on your desktop. You have to set up sync in order to be able to do that. I highly encourage you to do sync simply so that you have a backup of your research somewhere. So if my computer completely blanked out on me, my research would not be lost forever, which is a wonderful, beautiful thing. So the first time you do this, you'll need to go over and create an account over at Zotero.org and then come back in here and you'll need to plug in that information. And then if you have another computer, you will need to log in, go to its edit preferences and also enter that information so that it's able to talk to the other computer as well. Now the other piece I want to show you is the cite function. So the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, fifth button over says cite. And this is where we get to kind of tell Zotero what citation styles we might be using. So it comes pre-populated with a lot of the really popular ones like APA and Chicago and MLA. But if I'm using one that's a little bit more uncommon, what I can do is go through and manually add it. So for example, if I wanted to add the National Library of Medicine style, what I would do is I would go to Get Additional Styles. A little window is going to pop up and it's going to give me a style search, and then simply here I can type in the name of the style, and so National Library of Medicine. And it's going to show me a couple of the National Library of Medicine styles. I'm going to stick with the first one, which is the primary one. And then you'll see now that it simply pops up over here. It's that easy to add a new style. Now, the other thing that you might run into is the word processor. So the second tab over is word processor. When you download Zotero initially, it should add it to your word processor. But if you go into your word processor and it's not there, we come back in here, go to Site, click on the Word Processor tab, and then hit Install Microsoft Word Add-in. And then it should add that into our Word program. And if it doesn't work, come back, reinstall it. One note is if you have your Word open and you do this, you will need to shut it down and then bring it back up again. Okay. Now the final thing I want to pull your attention to is the export button. And what this does is this kind of sets our default for citations for most of the tools here. I am an APA person, so I'm going to set my default format to APA. The default, it comes with a Chicago. So if you see things looking a little funny, make sure you're changing the export to read to the citation style that you're mostly going to be using. And then you can hit OK, and so all of those components should be saved. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the thing everybody always gets really excited about with Zotero, and that is actually creating citations. So there's a couple of ways to add citations to a document, and you can add citations to emails, Blackboard discussion posts. Sometimes you have to use citations in those, to your papers, to other documents. It works with all kinds of different word processors. So the dead simple way of adding just a single citation, so if you only have to add one reference list citation, what you can just do is drag and then drop it, and it will bring over the citation. And so that's just drag and drop. Now, say you had a longer list of citations, you need to provide a list to your professor of the articles that you're using. You can either hold down Shift and get articles that are next to each other, or if you hold down Control, you can click on Random Articles, and then what you can do is once you have selected the articles, you can right-click and then create a bibliography from the items. Now, once you do this, you can tell it what style you want to use. I'm going to use APA again. And then I encourage you to go ahead and just have it copied to the clipboard. So that kind of puts that on my clipboard. so that when I come over here, all I have to do is right click, paste, and then that's going to paste in a reference list of those selected works, and they will of course be in alphabetical order. Now sometimes it's necessary for us to do in-text citations within a document, and so one way to do that, and again these are just quick and dirty ones. If you're writing a paper, I actually have a different recommendation, but if you're just doing like a blog post or a discussion board post, to do an in-text citation, what you do is you hold down the Shift key and then you drag and drop that, and then that's going to create an in-text citation for you. So to do an in-text citation this way, you just highlight the item you want to do, hold Shift, and then drag that over to the word processing document, and that will create the in-text citation. Now these are great and wonderful and all that, but one of the cool things about Zotero, so I'm going to minimize the program and open up Word fully, is remember how we added in the the add-in for the word processor. So what you'll notice is now in the top menu of your word processor says Zotero. Again, if it doesn't say Zotero, go back under File, Preferences, I think Export, and then make sure you have the word processor selected and add the word processor back in. And now what we can do is go through and I can add a citation. So now I'm going to say I'm still working with APA, so I'm just going to go with that. And so pretend I am writing my paper. And then, for example, maybe I want to add one of my GNOME articles. So it's going to allow me to search, and maybe I want a GNOME of one's own. And so I can add that, and then I can hit Enter. And then that's going to add the in-text citation. And then I can type some more, and then I can add in another citation, and let's see, there's another GNOME article, and hit Enter there, and then keep going in my paper. And then when I'm ready to do my reference list, what I then do is click the second button that says Add Edit Bibliography. And then what that will do is that will generate a bibliography from the items I included as an in-text citation within the body of my paper. That's kind of cool, isn't it? Anyway, as you're going through, just make sure that if you aren't using a source, make sure you delete it. And you should be able to delete it and refresh it. And then it'll get rid of the things that you got rid of. Okay, so that is Zotero overview. What I encourage you to do now is to go through, and if you haven't already done it, download Zotero, and you can watch the video and pause it as you go through it. And then I encourage you to try to add the word plugin, then try to add some articles into your Zotero library, and then create 3 in-text citations, and then 3 reference list citations in a style that you think will be helpful for your assignments. So that is Zotero again. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. My email is deborah.t@usca.edu. Happy searching, and let me know if y'all have any questions. Thanks.